I suppose you know I've got a lot of cars. People have written about it in the papers, and a lot of them write and ask me why. Well, when I was driving a truck, every time a big shiny car drove by, it started me sort of daydreaming. I always thought that someday, somehow, something would happen to change everything for me. You know, I'd daydream about how it would be.
I was actually the recipient of 3 cars from Elvis.
The Cadillac that Elvis gave me was a 1975 Eldorado.
My husband was given a bronze Fleetwood Cadillac by Elvis Presley as a gift.
I had at the time a Mercedes. And Elvis said to me, he said, listen, you're Jewish. How can you drive a Nazi car? Now I want you to get rid of it. Now you have a Cadillac.
Not too much later, a few days later, we all got Cadillacs.
I'm looking around the car, I put that top down, I'm thinking, I'm dreaming, I am dreaming. I want to pinch myself, but I don't really want to wake up.
One of the first things he said was, I have a car coming for you tomorrow, and I said, I don't need it.
But he was more known for his extravagances of gifts and cars, and Elvis was a Cadillac person.
He loved his Cadillacs, they were his gift of choice. He bought his mama one, paid for it with his voice. And it was pink, of course, just like him, baby, now that's a playhouse. Oh, well, he drove his daddy crazy, money that he spent. He promised him he wouldn't, then he'd do it all again. He loved his Cadillacs, he gave a ton away, 200 more or less, or so the pundits say.
I met Elvis on July 6th, 1972, around, I'd say, midnight. I was Miss Tennessee Universe, and he was Elvis. I was invited to go to the Memphian Theater after it closed, because that's when he would rent out the theater and screen films. And I thought, after midnight, that doesn't seem, very respectable. But I didn't understand at the time that that's how he lived his life. That's how he was forced to live his life.
I was actually in grade school. He was just out of high school. I met him this summer of '54 in our local neighborhood. Elvis and I grew up about 2 city blocks from each other. And I went to the playground one day to get up to play a game. This was exactly the same week that Dewey Phillips played That's All Right, Mama. And he said, a boy from Humes High, and that stuck in my mind.
I started working for Elvis originally April the 30th, 1964. I was a hairstylist in Southern California. Our reputation grew, and my phone rang, and I picked it up, and I heard this southern drawl say that Elvis would love me to come over his house to fix his hair.
I go in the huddle, because any young kid wants to play with the older boys, and I saw this guy in the huddle, and I went, that's the guy. That's the guy Dewey played the record last night. And sure enough, it was Elvis. It was not so much the look, it was the look, but it was more the attitude. I was really into Brando and James Dean, and this guy was all that and more.
We bonded immediately. We shared the same religious fervor. We shared the same love of Southern cuisine and very much into our families and family bonds. So we just felt, immediately like kindred spirits.
And right away, he was more interested in talking and exploring relationship with me than his hair. And he asked me what I was into and what really interested me in life. What interests me more than anything else is my search for truth, for God. He said, wait a minute, Larry, wait. Just hold on. Just keep on talking, man, because you have no idea. I need to hear what you have to say. Please.
In my senior year in college, he said, I need you to come to work for me. He only had 3 guys working for him at that point. And I said, when? He said, now. And we left for California that day.
And the conversation lasted about 3 hours. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, hey man, look, why don't you just go back to your shop and tell me you quit, you work for me full time, what do you think? And all of this is happening all at once. I said yes.
He treated us with a lot of respect and love. He treated me as a sister, you know. He treated me with a lot of love. He treated all of us with a lot of love. We were traveling on our own as the Sweet Inspirations. We traveled all over the country. We did Germany, we did Italy, we did the bases all over, but we would cancel anything that came up if we got a call from Elvis. We were very loyal to him, and he was to us as well.
I just called him Babe. I would just go in at night and I'd say, hey, Babe, how are you doing? He just sort of stuck. If I was getting tough with him, I would say, hey, Elvis, come on, this is what we got to do. And some of the medicine he took didn't taste good. You know, he would fuss about that. And I said, spit it out and I'll give you some more just like it. Swallow it the first time, you don't have to swallow it but once. And then I would call him Elvis.
I'd met him in '58. Red took me to Rainbow Skating Rink, and that's where I first met him. Got along great. I joined the skating party, got my butt kicked real good. You know, I couldn't skate good. I just took it. When Elvis died laughing, and Red just started guff-on, man. It tore him up. So Elvis just told me later after I went to work for him, he said, I watched you that night. And he said, I really liked how you took care of yourself. You know, a lot of guys got frustrated and angry and mad, and you did it good.
My name's Kang Ray. I met Elvis Presley in 1970.
You taught him for how many years?
Total on and off 5 years.
And his degree?
7th degree black belt. Later on, Master Ed Parker promoting him 8th degree black belt before his death.
Elvis really loved karate, and he loved to talk about it, and he loved to talk to my husband about different discoveries that he made on his own, and it was nice. They were very, very close to each other, and Elvis felt my husband was like a brother.
My husband was given a Cadillac by Elvis Presley as a gift, and it was definitely something my husband didn't even know that Elvis would do. He just presented it.
I'd say he bought at least 20 to 30 Cadillacs at one time, okay, which would cover a multitude of 150, 200 Cadillacs since we've known him.
You don't figure a superstar like Elvis walking in a dealership and buying a car like that. You know, you figure he might call up and say, you got a Lincoln down there, this color, that color, blah, blah, blah. 9 o'clock Monday morning, I looked outside and there he was pulling up in his Cadillac. And he said, where's that car you was telling me about? How much is it? I said, $6,100. And he said, I'll take it. And I just froze because I knew I'd made one hell of a commission. And so he says, how long will it take you to get it ready? I says, it'll take about 30 or 40 minutes. He said, I ain't got that long. I said, I'll have it ready in 10 minutes. Before 9:30, there must have been a crowd of 200 or 300 people there.
Limousine pulled up, another limousine behind him, and 2 cars. Elvis was in the second limousine, and there were about 20 people altogether. Pulled up there on Union Avenue, got out in the parking lot, and started picking out cars. He wasn't there a total of 15 minutes, bought about 10 cars. But by the time he left, by the time his entourage pulled out, maximum 15 minutes, we had a good 100 extra people there just standing around. So I can sort of understand why he pretty much was a night owl.
It was at night, and at the time, his new toy was a flashlight that was about this long, and we look around, and it's very dark out there because the dealership is closed. We're just in the parking lot looking around. So I pick out, I think it was called a Brome Cadillac for Vernon. I thought we're ready to go, so I start walking away, and he says, wait a minute. He says, what's your favorite color? I said, come on, tell me what's your favorite color. And he's standing there with the flashlight, and I'm looking in his eyes, and I figure out, well, maybe blue, since his eyes are something. And I said, okay, blue. So then he just walks away, and he walks through the parking lot, looking for a blue car. I guess the first blue one he saw was a baby blue Eldorado.
A 1975 Cadillac driven by the king himself, Elvis Presley, rolled out of a New Hampshire state prison today.
I heard that it's in New Hampshire, that it had been refurbished at a prison in New Hampshire. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what it looks like. I hope it looks the same.
Medium security inmates have been restoring this glacial blue Eldorado for about 2.5 years, all part of the prison's auto body technologies program. Elvis actually bought the Cadillac for a singer in the group, Sweet Inspirations. Bramante bought the car a decade ago for about $10,000. That is the same amount the king paid for it.
I don't know if my license plate is still on there. It was LDYBLU, Lady Blue. And I used to just ride around California, and people would wave at me because they assumed they knew me because of my license plate.
I want to tell you about my dream. Elvis came and he said to me, "You're so pretty, you're so sweet, I'm gonna give you a special treat." Took me by the hand and led me to the street. It was parked right there waiting for me. Honey, this is all for you. My eyes popped out and yours would too. It was a blue, 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 blue.
During the wee hours of the morning, a little lady and her husband were walking by on the sidewalk, peeking in the window, and Elvis walked out and asked her what she was doing. She said she was looking to see what was going on. "Do you want a Cadillac?" And she said, "I always wanted one." He said, "Get her one too," and got her a Cadillac.
He was the only guy I knew that would give away cars. Like one time he was at the Cadillac dealership. He was looking at a car and a black lady was looking at it, and she
Manny
says,
Person.
"Huh?
Manny Person.
Is that her name?"
Yeah.
And he bought it for her.
Yes.
Yeah. And she said, "Oh, I love that car." She said, "I wish I could have it." She said, "Well, you just got it." And that's the way he was, you know. Just put that on my bill.
There were times when he gave extraordinary gifts to people that he didn't even know. I remember we were driving once down Wilshire Boulevard, and there was a Cadillac dealership, and he peeked in and he saw these two women, a young girl and her mother, looking at this car. He told the driver, "I want to go in." And he went up to the young girl and he said, "That's a pretty car." And she said, "Oh my God, you're Elvis Presley." He said, "Yeah." He said, that's a nice car, isn't it?" She said, "Oh yeah, well, we're just looking, you know, we were just kind of walking down the street and we thought we'd come in and look at the car." He said, "Is that the kind of car you like?" And she said, "Oh yeah, but you know, I'm a student." And he actually purchased the car for this girl and her mother that he'd never laid eyes on before, but he just saw them looking as if they wished they could afford a car like that.
Everyone followed Elvis in our cars, and we drove to Beverly Hills, to Lou Eller's Cadillac dealership on Wilshire Boulevard. And when that salesperson saw Elvis coming, you could see his eyeballs just turning to dollar signs, you know. Elvis said to all of us, "Pick out a car that you want." And everybody picked out a Cadillac. It was unbelievable. I had the most beautiful black Cadillac convertible. He loved that car.
So he loved to see my smile. Especially he gave to me Eldorado Cadillac. But no reason to give to me. I had the car, but he said you should be more comfortable and then a more luxury car instead of the small car to driving.
You know, in the South, beauty pageants were big, and I had a nice little run on them. So I had put myself through university just, you know, winning pageants. So I was Miss Liberty Bowl, and I had this little Vega that didn't have any air conditioning on it. It was just a little standard car, and he laughed at me and made fun of my little Vega. So before I knew it, I had a beautiful blue Lincoln Continental. And then a few years later, I got a Cadillac Seville for Christmas. And then he saw this beautiful yellow Pantera, and he said, "You'd look great in that car. I want to get that for you." I said, "The Pantera? Really? I don't know how to drive a stick shift." He said, "Well, I'll teach you." So he got the car and took it for a drive. And we came back from the test drive, and he said, "I'm taking this car back. You can't have it. You'll get killed in it." I said, "Well, okay, that's fine. I didn't need another car anyway."
You said it was a three-wheeler. That's the one he drove you around the block in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially, you got a three-wheel automobile.
No, that's a Cadillac?
No, that's a German Messerschmitt.
Oh, okay. That's what he gave you? He gave you the measures?
It's a three-wheel automobile with a bubble top. A lot of people offer me money for it. It's not for sale. It's like an airplane without wings. And the bubble top, it opens up.
Color?
Burgundy.
Interior?
Black. Cool. Sharp. Hey, ooh, what is that? Everybody, ooh, ah, what is that? Have you ever seen one? There's something. It's a German Messerschmitt. You can have all the Cadillacs you want, but you can't get a Messerschmitt.
One of the first things he said was, I have a car coming for you tomorrow, and I said, I don't need it. And he was sort of taken back, and he said, what do you mean you don't need it? And I said, well, I have one. You can't drive but one at a time. And so he said, well, hell, Miss Cock, he said, whether you want it or not, it'll be here tomorrow. And it was a beautiful white Pontiac. And he told me, he said, I would have bought you a Cadillac, but a Pontiac is less to maintain.
He said, well, it's yours. He tried to hand me the keys. And I said, no, it's not. No, boss, it's not. And I turned around and walked away. I went back and got in the Rolls Royce limo. He comes over there. Sonny, what's wrong with you? You can't tell me that you didn't want a Cadillac convertible when you were a kid and you saw people do that. I said, well, yeah, but you seem to always be given and we seem to always be taken. He said, Sonny, you're given when you don't even know you're given. I put you guys through a lot sometimes.
I called administration the next morning and I said, I don't know what to do about this. I said, Elvis has given me a car, and I said, I've told him I don't need it. And so one of the vice presidents came up and we talked about it, and I said, you know, I don't want to cause any problems for the hospital. And he said, I think it would cause a bigger problem if you turned it down.
He started talking to the nurses, and something came up about cars. I don't know what it was, but basically he surprised them the day he was getting ready to leave. He called them into his room, told them to look out, and if I'm not mistaken, it was like the 15th floor, told them to look out, and there we had cars parked for the nurses that he had arranged for, just gave them cars.
He just kind of said, you know, you people need a new car. I'd like you to have a Cadillac. And my mom said, oh, Elvis, we don't, you know, they protested, of course. But it was, you know, certainly something that my parents had never had. And so they were taken aback, and it was a huge deal in their lives. But, you know, just the generosity of spirit, I think, was appreciated more than the actual gift of the car.
And this is her parents. And here's Lynn Thompson with Elvis Presley. I have the original title when it was registered to Lynn Thompson's parents, and when Elvis Presley owned the car, and when it was registered in his aunt's name. These are just letters. One letter is from Lynn Thompson's parents stating that the car did belong to Elvis Presley, and also a certificate from the Department of Motor Vehicle stating that the car also belonged to Elvis Presley. And this is just a picture of when this car was auctioned off in Europe. This is Elvis Presley's 1971 Cadillac that I won in a raffle. I found out about the raffle in the Elvis Only newsletter, and I won the car. And I like to do charity work. And it makes me feel really good inside that I'm able to do something for a child, or when I was doing it for the National Missing Children Center. With the car, I also did a fundraiser for the Special Olympics, and I really enjoyed that. It makes me feel good.
It's wonderful to know that just because a car was given by Elvis Presley, that now it can generate income for charities. Elvis was very much like Santa Claus because he really derived more pleasure from giving than from receiving.
The first one was a 63 in 1965. Before that, he gave me the motorcycle. He gave me that 67 Cadillac that he had, the Eldorado, the first year they came out with front-wheel drive. And then in December of 70, he was my best man. When we got married, he gave us a Mercedes 280 SE for a wedding present. He gave me a 1973 Eldorado black on black Cabriolet.
I mean, I was a recipient of at least 8 over the years.
75, he gave the Lincoln to me.
A Mercedes, 3 Cadillacs.
And 76, in January, up in Vail, he gave my wife a 1976 Seville. White, baby blue interior, baby blue top.
Trans Am.
She was just blown away by it, you know. That was her car, not mine, her car.
First Trans Am with a big engine, had the big Firebird on it. It's white with this big, beautiful blue Firebird. And I'd had it like a day, and I go out in front of the house in Beverly Hills, and Lisa is about 6 years old, and she's peeling off the bird on my Trans Am. That's the first time I ever got mad at her.
When we were in Vail, we befriended Captain Kennedy and Ron Petrofesso and a few people who worked for the Denver Police Department.
They were just very super nice guys. We met them on the security deal when we played Denver, when we did the show there. So we got to be good friends with them. And whenever we were up there, like in Vail or something, they were around.
I was the commander of a number of bureaus throughout my career. I was also off-duty work coordinator for the city facilities, so I had all the police at the concerts, the ball games, and everything else. So I brought my little entourage of policemen, half a dozen of us, to provide security on the floor to guard, you know, Elvis's quarters there.
We were at the Radisson Hotel in Denver, which was the home of the Playboy Club at that time. And we had either the 10th or 11th floor, and it was completely sealed off.
Of course, Elvis came strolling out and shooting the breeze. I mean, he loved to tell jokes. He loved to hear jokes. He loved policemen. He liked camaraderie, and as well as he liked the girls, you know. So we had a good time. We became friends. He came back for personal rides in the police car. You know, the years went by. We went out to Las Vegas to his shows, took the wives out there to Lake Tahoe. You know, it was fun. I mean, I was talking on the phone with my wife, and Elvis got on the phone and said hello to Joan, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to buy you a car like mine. I'm going to buy you a Lincoln." I says, "Oh, no, you're not." He said, "Yeah, I am." He says, "I appreciate everything that you've done and all your guys have done to make this visit such a pleasant thing." He says, "I appreciate it." And he says, "I'm going to buy you a Lincoln."
And it wasn't maybe an hour or so later, he called me up to his room in the house that he was renting in Vail, and we were sitting there talking, and he popped this question to me. He said, you know, if you could buy any car in the world, what would you buy? And I said, you know, I don't know, I'd probably buy a Cadillac. You know, and to me in 1976, that was probably the best car that was on the road. And I mean, I said, I'd probably buy a Cadillac. He said, really? He said, any particular kind? And I said, probably an Eldorado.
He picked that one, and he bought that one for him, and then we took a spin around the block in the Lincoln, and then we headed out for Jack Kent Cadillac for these other Cadillacs for Ron and Bob Cantwell and Joe Esposito's girlfriend and Red West's girlfriend and Colonel Parker.
He ended up buying, I believe that night, 6 or 7 Cadillacs. He bought Linda Thompson a new car that night. You know, and why he would buy one in Denver, Colorado, it's just, it was the thrill and the excitement of everybody being there. I mean, he could have bought it in California, he could have bought it in Memphis, but he wanted to buy it that night. I mean, he went crazy with buying cars that night. And obviously the Cadillac dealership loved it. There was something that, you know, things just like that you hear about, you read about, and it doesn't happen to you. I mean, you know, for a working policeman that, you know, I mean, it was overwhelming, to say the least. I mean, you know, somebody's going to buy you a Cadillac that probably at that point in my life was half my salary for the year.
I mean, it was about, I don't know, 150 grand or whatever it was. It was big time money. You know, after he bought all those cars, I mean, he told me, he says, you know, Captain, he says, when my dad gets all those canceled checks, he's going to shit his pants.
This car came into my world in the strangest of circumstances. We were doing a broadcast, a morning broadcast on a Denver television station, followed the Today Show on NBC.
And we were sitting there in Vail watching the TV in the morning, and they were obviously doing a newscast about all these cars that had been purchased the day before.
And my co-anchor at the end of the broadcast, in a little goodbye that we would do each day, she said, I'm going to go up to Aspen this weekend, and I hope that Elvis bumps into me. Now, there was an implication to that. First, Elvis was over in Vail, Colorado, not to matter. But the innuendo of what she said was just shattering. And I turned and looked at her and I said, what an inappropriate thing to say.
Elvis started laughing. He said, Ron, do you know that guy? I said, yeah. I said, you know, I know who he is. He said, call him on the phone.
Picked up the phone and the guy says, what kind of car do you want? And I said, pardon me, who is this? And he said, this is Elvis. And of course, immediately I thought it was a practical joke, particularly from some friends at other television station in town.
Elvis handed me the phone. He said, this guy doesn't believe it's me. So I got him back on the phone. I said, hey, Don, trust me, this is the real guy.
And he says, Don, this is Petrofesso. He wants to give you a car, damn it.
He goes, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, I'm not. I said, he was watching this morning, just happened to be watching the TV when you came on, and I said, he had us make the phone call for you.
And then a little bit later, another voice appeared in another call, and he said he was something at a Cadillac dealership, and which car did I want? And I said, well, what kind of car are we talking about? And he says, Cadillac. He says, the rule is you have to take one off the showroom floor. We have 7 of them available. We have a blue one with a dark blue top, and we have a white one, and we have a pink one. What do you want? I said, I'll take the blue one. Hung up. That afternoon, I went out, and this car was waiting for me, and I drove away. And I have to confess, my life was changed. It rolled on from there. There were some very difficult days. Actually, the next year was rather difficult with regard to the car. 1, a journalist should not accept a gift. 2, I was totally eclipsed as a newsman by the fellow who got the Cadillac from Elvis. And it became an emotional burden.
Just to show you how much people would attract to anything Elvis touched or was around. I mean, here was a car that belonged to me. He paid for it, but it was my car. It wasn't his car, it was mine. People want me to sign their baby's leg, their wife's back with marking pens. You know, I was asking these people, why do you want this? And their answer was, this is the closest that we could ever get to anybody that was that close to Elvis.
It was an exciting time, and you know, I think I had a pretty exciting career as a policeman. I made, you know, thousands of arrests and drug busts myself, but nobody remembers me for that. Oh, you're the guy that Elvis gave a car to, and so that's been the story of my life since you know, 1976, and it still, you know, goes to this day.
Hurricane. Running with the king at the height of his reign. It's like trying to hold on to a runaway train.
Elvis had 2 pairs of glasses that he gave my husband, and one time when my husband was leaving his house, Elvis said, Ed, you forgot your glasses. And my husband said, those aren't my glasses, they're yours. He said, they have your initials.
Like my TCB, that's there forever. Taking care of business, lightning fast. It was the first one, because I happened to be with him when we picked him up down there at the jewelry store in Beverly Hills. And he put it on my neck there in the shop, in their store. And he put one on himself. He had something like a dozen, I think it was, that were made up. He was really thinking about just us guys that were with him at the time and our wives. And then he would give them away to celebrities. They would remark about it. And he tried to take mine one time, and I wouldn't let him have it. He wanted to give it to some celebrity. I don't know who it was. And I said, no. And he said, what do you mean, no? I'll get you another one. And I said, no, you can't get me another one, Elvis. This is very special to me. It's the first one and that you gave out, and I want to keep it. I'm going to keep it. He said, they're all alike. I said, no, they're not. And I said, now, if you want me to not wear this so that you don't ask me for it, I won't wear it, Elvis. He said, no, go ahead and wear it. And later on, I went to him. I said, Elvis, I hope you're not angry about that, Matt. And he said, no, hell no. He said, I know what you mean. And he said, I appreciate that. I know. And that was it. He never asked me for it again.
The first gift Elvis ever gave me was a beautiful diamond cross. And it's in an old-fashioned looking mounting. It's very beautiful, and I wear it occasionally. The second gift he ever gave me was the car. And then the third gift he gave me was my TLC chain. And of course I wear this all the time. And it has both of our names on the back of it and the day he gave it to me. And then for Christmas that year, he gave me a 21-carat aquamarine ring. He gave me a mink coat, and it's silver gray, and he said, this is to match your hair.
He was always giving gifts, always. And so he brought the mink coat to my house. And I was very, very surprised. He just stood and grinned as I opened the box. But I found out from my husband that Elvis had bought this for me because he had bought my husband the Cadillac, and he didn't want me to feel that I wouldn't have a gift as appropriate as my husband's.
When I first saw him, he was looking in the window of a store down on Beale Street. I invited him into the store, and I showed him around, showed him what was happening. I said, sir, I don't have no money right now. He said, but when I get rich, I'll buy you out. I said, do me a favor, don't buy me, I'll just buy from me. And he cut a couple of records, all at once. Come back, he's Mr. Lansky. He said, I got to have some real sharp clothes. I'm going on television. The first one that ever put a flip collar on Elvis was me. And from then, he liked it. He had that ducktail hair back. When I pulled it up, blew his mind. And from then on, that's what he started wearing.
He thinking I am very looking terrible. So he gave to me a leather jacket and then many different clothing. I'm not good dresser. He bought lots of clothing for me.
About every 6 months, he'd give his clothes away. And to a few of the guys that were closer to his size, like Jerry Schilling and a few others, we got his jackets. And I'm about maybe 2 inches, 3 inches taller than Elvis. So he gave me shirts, and everything was just a little too short. And I tried to make it fit, and it just, you know.
I've got one of his jackets. I guess I could get $50,000 for it. I've got one of his jackets that he wore in, let's see, 55. The little black velvet collar. He had a great heart, and if he had anything that, if you complimented the shirt he had on, well, he'd almost take it off and give it to you. That's just the way he was.
Beale Street, soulful southern stew, integrated, fascinating, raw, transforming the boy who would became into a music man like no one ever saw. It was all in the music and in the rhythm when it sang, and in the lessons learned, both obvious and core.
He was a good man, wonderful man. Had a temper, we all know that. Had a huge ego, we all know that, but I don't think you can find a superstar that doesn't have one. That's what makes him so special. Like, I never heard him say in a situation that was serious, I'm wrong. I apologize. I'm wrong. He would get around it. In other words, he just couldn't do it. He would make up it in other ways, just in words or in some other sort of deed or something. Say something to you to let you know that what happened yesterday or the day before, it's over and it's done and it's gone and I didn't mean to do it.
He may not say, I'm sorry, because he found that very hard to do. But he would let you know that he was sorry in some manner. He'd either give you jewelry or, you know, a bonus, but in his way, that was an apology. Well, there had been a misunderstanding, and so I'm standing there, the only female left on the stage, and he walks over to me and takes off a ring and tries to puts it on my finger, and I'm trying to give it back, and we're tussling, we're holding up the show. So finally, I decide the only way that he's going to go ahead and get the show over with is for me to take the ring. So I run off, we get in our cars, we get to Elvis's plane, we get on the plane, and I'm sitting across from Elvis on the Lisa Marie, and I take off the ring, and I say to him, I want you to have this back because I stayed on stage because that's my job, and I like the way this looks on you. And Elvis didn't take kindly to somebody giving back a gift, and he was kind of hurt that I wouldn't accept it, but he took it, and the next night, he threw it in the audience.
As the ring was in midair, before it even came down, before he even saw who got the ring, he turned and walked off stage. Afterwards, I remember Joe Esposito said to Elvis, what the hell are you doing? That's like a $30,000 diamond ring. Why did you do that? And Elvis said, I'll tell you why I did it. He said, I just, that voice inside of me, that still small voice, just said, someone needs that ring more than I. He said, I can buy a ring of all the rings I want.
When he put his rings on, they would put Band-Aids, flesh-colored Band-Aids, around his fingers in front of the rings, so that when he'd do his routine going down and shaking hands in the front of the stage, nobody would be able to pull these rings off. This particular night, after about the second or third night of wearing this one ring, he was getting ready to go out, and he said, don't put one there. It didn't mean anything to me, but Joe looked at me and he said, he's going to give that ring away. The concert went on, and we were all standing in the backstage or behind the speakers where we would stand, and he'd do his routine where he'd go down to the audience or go down to the edge of the stage and give his scarves away, and he'd start shaking hands. There was a little girl sitting down there in a wheelchair, sitting real close to the front of the stage. And he took this ring off and put it in her hand, closed her hand. His security guys went over to the little girl's mother and told her he just gave her a really expensive ring. It was an opal, a huge, maybe 4, 5, 6 carat opal. And around it, it had either half or 3/4 diamonds all the way around it. I mean, this thing was, the center stone was huge. So it was a huge ring. I mean, it was a stage person's ring. And I remember that it cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $35,000 or $40,000. That's the kind of stuff. And there was never any news press about that. There was never any publicity about that. He didn't do it for that. I mean, he got a big thrill out of giving this little girl in a wheelchair this ring, and I mean, that's the kind of stuff he did.
It was after he got out of the Army, and we come in and record one night, and they had a spotlight over his head so he could see the lyrics, you know. And it was hitting, reflecting off of these diamonds. And they were just diamonds all over the walls. You could see them diamonds shining, you know. So after the first take, I said, well, that's a nice ring you got, Elvis. He said, yeah. I said, I just got them not long, a few days ago, whatever. He said, you want to wear it for a while? I said, yeah, I'll wear it for a little while, if you don't mind. So he said, now, when we get through in the morning, it was the next morning, he said, you can give it back to me. I said, that'd be fine. So when we got through and they called it a wrap, and I went over to him, I said, well, here's your ring back. He said, oh, no. I said, hell, when I go broke, then you give it back to me, you know. So I still got it.
This is the ring that Elvis Presley gave to my husband for his birthday. And this one was given to me because my name means Leilani. It's a Hawaiian name, which means a heavenly flower. So he thought this would be appropriate to give me because it's a flower. This one he gave to me, I think it was the first diamond ring that he gave me. Elvis liked to give from the heart, and the Hawaiian people are the same way. They believe in sharing what they have, even if it's very little, that they would share with family and friends and not be selfish and not be feeling that it's mine and I'm not going to give it to anyone else. So that we definitely have in common with Southerners. Elvis had gone to Hawaii a lot, and he was the largest single contributor to the Pearl Harbor Monument. And because he had done the concert in Hawaii, he wanted to give my husband a gift that would be memorable to him. And so he gave him the cape and the belt that he wore during the concert in Hawaii. And we have it in our hallway. It's beautifully framed.
Once Elvis and I went into a pet store. He said, give me every one of these dogs. We got a pug, we got a poodle, we got a Maltese, we got a chow, we got a Pomeranian. I mean, there was every kind of dog that you could imagine. We were swarmed with 15 puppies in the car coming home, and we gave all these dogs away. I mean, it was incredibly joyous.
Which reminds me of a time we were buying horses. We got Priscilla and Sandy a horse, and then Elvis and I got a horse. And then he wanted to give the rest of the guys a horse, and then their wives a horse. And we wound up with about 48 horses at Graceland, which wasn't big enough for that. And then buying a ranch. One night, we were about 3 in the morning, I get a call. Hey, Jerry, there's this great horse ranch down in Mississippi. I'm gonna be by to pick you up. And we go down to Mississippi. It's this beautiful green pasture, a big white cross, and 160 acres. I'm riding horses again at 4 in the morning. The Circucci Ranch, yeah. And Elvis wound up buying that.
Our friendship goes beyond anything material that he ever gave. And over the years, I received cars and rings and watches. And I remember one time, he said to me, come on, I got a surprise for everyone. Okay. Walk outside, and there was a huge truck. And on the truck were about 12 brand new Harley Davidsons. And Elvis said to everyone, all right, y'all, everyone, just pick out the one you want. This is my gift to you. Outside the gates, there were tons of people. They were taking pictures, and people were screaming at Elvis, hi, Elvis, I come over here and I love you. There was this young kid who was leaning against the gate. And we walked over to this kid, and Elvis said, those are nice bikes, aren't they? Well, the kid was frozen. Elvis Presley actually walked up and said something to him. Elvis said, would you like to have a bike? I want you to go take a bike for yourself. This is my gift to you, son. I want you to have a bike. The kid got a bike. Elvis and I walked away, and he said, man, when I saw the look in his eyes.
He offered me $50,000. I'm trying to refuse that $50,000. Holding my hand, he told me that if I spending $1 million each day, and still I cannot spend my money, so you do not have to worry about this money, just to go keep it and then using that developing Memphis karate, martial art. And entire bodyguard, they approaching me, Master Kangri, Elvis really mean it. Why don't you take it, that the $50,000 check? Elvis Presley is the biggest influence in my life. He's the most generous person, a giving person, loving person. As a martial artist, and he's the true master.
Elvis really derived more pleasure from giving than from receiving. In fact, it embarrassed him, and he just felt like, I have everything, please don't give me anything. So he was extraordinarily generous to a fault at times. There were times that, when people took advantage of his generosity, but it didn't seem to bother him.
People would try sometime to rain on Elvis's parade, and that used to irritate me a whole lot. When he'd do something, why'd you give them that? He said, because I wanted to. And I'm thinking, Why are you asking him? In my mind, I'm thinking, why are you asking him why he gave somebody something?
Elvis liked to give from the heart, and he didn't want to feel that he had to give things to people or that they were going to demand it or expect it. He wanted to do it because he wanted to do it, and he wanted to give it to whom he wanted to give.
You know, he was also a smart man. He could perceive when people, after a point, in the beginning he might not, you know, he might not be so aware of someone taking advantage of him, but it didn't take him long to catch on. And once he did, he knew where to draw the line.
But there were some jealous guys in that outfit. Not a bunch of them, but 2 or 3 that were not going to be left out when Elvis started giving away things. I mean, they would fly from another city to be there while he was doing the giving so they could get it. They would bring it up to him and say, "Where's mine?"
And at the time, it just unfolded so genuinely and so easily and so readily that there was never a lot of fanfare, never any publicity. He didn't do it for any kind of self-aggrandizement. He didn't do it for any kind of accolades. He did it because he was generous of spirit and generous of heart, and he derived great joy.
So then Captain Kennedy, his brother, was a deputy sheriff, and he died. We went back up there for the funeral.
Elvis played a very significant role in how all of that transpired. I mean, he played a very humanist role in making the Kennedy lives not quite as difficult as they could have been.
Unfortunately, my brother, who was a Denver police detective, you know, who had some personal problems, marital problems and so forth, took his own life. Well, Elvis was more moved than members of the family. I mean, this was a blow to him, and you just can't say enough about the guy. I mean, he went over to the family's house, he counseled all the nephews and nieces and children, I mean, like a brother. And, you know, he was a very sincere man. And he ended up, in fact, paying for the funeral, which was no small tab. He also flew in his group, the Stamps, to sing at the funeral. The church was packed, of course, and was aisles of rows and rows of policemen there, and he wanted to be part of that group.
And Elvis didn't want to draw any attention, so he wore a policeman's uniform and hat, everything at the funeral.
So he bought a uniform, you know, a Denver police uniform, but he bought his own, but his was double-breasted. I mean, we had these dress blouse coats with gold buttons. He had 2 sets of gold buttons on his. But he sat up there with the rest of the police officers, and like I say, he brought in his group to sing. It was a phenomenal, you know, if you had to go, that was a heck of a way to go.
Jerry's mother died when Jerry was 2 years old, and he lived with his grandparents. Then his grandparents died, and Elvis felt sorry for him because he didn't have the kind of upbringing Elvis thought you should have. You should have a mother and a dad with you, and he thought that he could do something nice for Jerry.
Certainly the most sensitive time for me with a gift with Elvis was when he bought me a home, you know. And I think Elvis knew my background. I didn't realize he knew as much about me as he really did. He said, do you know why I bought you that house? And I said, I still can't believe you bought me a house. I said, I'm still in shock. I said, no, I don't know anything, man. And he said, well, I knew you never had a home, and I wanted to be the one to give it to you. And that's the kind of guy he was. Nobody in the world knew about that. You know, guys would know about it, whatever, but it was no publicity, nothing. Never another word said about it. And also, he came to the house the first time, and we went up there together.
Elvis and all the guys and Linda Thompson, they all came up to see what Elvis had bought. It was a very nice evening. We had fun.
And he sat and he talked about the view and said it reminded him of his Hillcrest house. And Most things were personal like that, you know, and those were things that really meant something to me. He could have given me 4 cars that day at the ranch, and I would have cared less, actually.
You know, he'd love to see the expression on people's faces when he would surprise them with a house, a car, a ring, you know, a piece of jewelry, a TCB, a TLC, you know. He just, he was like a little angel that dropped down and said, you know, here, I want to do something to bring joy to people's lives and a smile to their faces.
He made mistakes, everyone does, and bless his soul, he lost control of who he was. Yeah, he got heavy, and he sang some bad songs, but he sang some great ones before he passed on. So let's shine a little light on Elvis. Let's shine a little light his way. Why don't we shine a little light on Elvis and appreciate the gifts he gave? And he grew up sheltered, he grew up poor, but he grew up cherished, loved and adored. He dreamed his dreams like you and me, then woke from his parents' poverty. So let's shine a little light on Elvis. Let's shine a little light his way. Why don't we shine a little light on Elvis and appreciate the price he paid? And he carried their burdens square up on his back until he could buy him their very first home and a couple of brand new Cadillacs. Wish I could have done that. Bet you do too. So how about some credit where credit's due? It's time to shine a little light on Elvis. Let's shine a little light his way. 'Cause when you shine on someone else, that light'll shine back on yourself, and that's bound to make a better day. Why don't we shine a little light on Elvis? Let's shine a little light his way. 'Cause when you shine a little light, it's like a beacon in the night, can guide you till the break of day.
He was a giver. He was such a giver, and he enjoyed that look on your face, that moment, that spontaneous moment of where you're just overwhelmed, that made his day. That made the whole thing worthwhile.
But that's Elvis. He was so giving. Every day he gave something to someone over the years.
He would see how happy that would make somebody, and then he wanted to do it again. And then he would really get kind of carried away.
Elvis was a little strange, I guess, but he was beautiful. He was beautiful. And he responded to something very deep within himself that to him was accurate, genuine, and true, and he followed that impulse, that voice.
He was generous with his time. He would sit and he would listen, and you know, he became emotionally involved with people. He was very tender-hearted.
He treated us with a lot of respect and love. Lots of hugs and kisses.
It's important, I think, to remember that in this life, we receive many things materially, and there are many tangible things, but as the old adage goes, you can't take it with you. And the only thing you do leave behind, and the only thing that you take with you, is the love that you've generated on this earth.
They mean something to me, but there are still things. The most important thing I ever had was his friendship. And that's the best thing he gave me.
He loved his Cadillacs. They were his gift of choice. He bought his mama one, paid for it with his voice. And it was pink, of course, just like him, baby, now that's a playhouse. Oh, well, he drove his daddy crazy, money that he spent. He promised him he wouldn't, then he'd do it all again. He loved his Cadillacs. He gave a ton away, 200 more or less, or so the pundits say. And when he wanted to, he'd take one for a drive, with little Zilla out in Vegas, hair in a beehive, with Red and Sonny sitting in the back to shuck and jive. Shuck and jive. 200 Cadillacs, that's a lot of cars. Stretch back to back, that's halfway out to Mars. But he never was your average superstar. Now here's another fact. He never took one back. He loved his Cadillacs and that new car bouquet. All kinds of colors too, even a golden maid. You know it never stopped, the way you made him feel. When you slide across the leather, slip behind the wheel, tool around in Memphis, make the girls' tires squeal. Tires squeal. Now here's another fact. He was crazy about pink and black, 200 Cadillacs, and lots of Lincolns too. A mess of red Corvettes, Mercedes powder blue, even a black Rolls Royce. He gave them all away. Yeah, and every time he did it, this is what it said. What's the fun of having money if you can't give it away? And every time he did it, this is what it said. What's the fun of having money if you can't give it away? What's the fun of having money?